Hey, good afternoon. This is Tara Dominguez with the Department of Public Instruction, and you are here to discuss the Office of Civil Rights Data Collection, known as OCR or CRDC. Before we get started, by a show of hands, using the hand icon, can you indicate that you hear me? All right. Okay, that's great. That's great. We're gonna jump right in today. Please use your question panel to provide any feedback, any comments, any questions. I'll do my best to get to your questions today. However, it would be great if you record those comments for me, and I can reach out to you after the fact if I'm not able to get to that question in the time allotted today. So we are going to get started. This presentation, just like the last couple of collections, will be a compilation, a collection of the status update. You'll notice at in the bottom left-hand corner that you've got a date originally presented. That will not change if the slide remains the same throughout our status updates. And you can download this full presentation on our NC Public Schools Documentation and Webinars OCR site. So in this, when you download, the slides from previous updates that are not relevant will be hidden, but hopefully this is a compilation of and a comprehensive status as we move through our collection. So for today, we're going to talk briefly about the overview. We're going to discuss the timeline. We will talk about preparing for the CRDC. I'm going to show you some Powerschool functionality as I am able, and I will do my best to answer your questions. So please, again, put in your questions at any point. It would be great if you preface the question with what the subject is. So for example, overview, how do I, or timeline, what is the date for? This webinar will be recorded, and it will be on our Grads 360 CRDC website. So we'll talk a little bit more about that also. Here we go. So I just want to go through the acronyms for those who might be new to the collection. OCR is Office of Civil Rights. CRDC is the Civil Rights Data Collection. And you'll notice when you get communications from me that I sometimes use them interchangeably. So I just want to make sure that we're all aware of what those acronyms mean. This collection began about the same time I did, which is in 1974. And all public schools, all charters, are required to submit data to the federal government nationally. This stuff is published for anyone to look at. So this is analyzed by lawmakers, by communities, by news teams, by researchers, and often commented on. This is about the equity of your student situation within your school. It might not have anything to do with direct funding, but it does have a huge spotlight on perspective about the schools and the districts. So I'm not going to read everything that's on this slide, but this gives you the gist of what data the Office of Civil Rights expects to collect. Now, like I said, every LEA, every charter are required to submit data. So depending on the type of charter you might be, or how many schools within your district you have, you could be submitting some or all of this data depending on the type of school or schools that you have. This is a large report. I think it might be one of the biggest in Powerschool. It's over 1,800 elements if you are submitting, for example, for a high school. So it talks about enrollment. It talks about your staff and your resources. They want to know about your student situations when it comes to discipline and safety data. They want to know about specific courses and exams that students take. Now, none of the data that are provided to the federal government are student level, meaning it's aggregate rolled up data. So they're looking at this by race, ethnicity, and gender, and as well as programs, such as the limited English proficiency, which I need to update that, should actually be EL, and EC data and 504 data. So again, ask any questions at any point. So in this year, we are, obviously in the 18-19 school year, and the data collection for the Office of Civil Rights will always be the previous year. So our collection is based on 17-18 data. The great thing about this is that due to the Powerschool implementation and the state ODS, we at the state level can help facilitate the upload of this data to the federal government for you. Now, this data is submitted to the feds. They do some evaluation and analysis. They may do a bit of masking just to make sure that the student data, you can't pinpoint any of the student or staff, and then it's published again nationally to everyone. It's available to anyone who cares to view it. So when it comes to the data that I was talking to you about as far as DPI facilitating the upload, we can get to 99% of the data. The actual average, or the percentage is something like 99.8 or 99.98. The only thing that we cannot collect if it is not in a system is teacher absenteeism. So that is at the local level and needs to be submitted directly to the federal government by the districts and by the charters. The majority of this data is in Powerschool, hence the Powerschool preview report that we provide to you prior to extracting your data and uploading it to the federal government. In addition, we use the authoritative sources for data that does not reside in Powerschool, and examples of that are the expenditure, internet access, which is new this year, teacher certification, which may be imported into Powerschool or may be aligned with Powerschool in a future collection, but will be a data extract that is uploaded directly to the federal submission tool from the authoritative source, and then staff and expenditure data. So we facilitate essentially a one-time upload of this data for you to continue reviewing the federal submission portal, fixing any errors that the portal indicates, reviewing any warnings, and ultimately functionally certifying the data. That's very important. That has to happen at the end of this collection. So right here you're looking at a list of DPI uploads. We do these uploads again based on the authoritative source. So we have upwards of 6 potentially. The expenditure information, the staff information, internet access, again new this year, teacher certification, and then our Powerschool data, the LEA level and the school level. So those are probably a little bit more than you need to know about the upload process and the files, but that's how it's split out and organized. I'm going to let you take a look at this slide, and I'm going to pull out the questions panel to see if anything is happening that I need to address. Remember, you can ask at any point. I'm going to pause when I can. All right, so we're looking good. So those schools that have a third-party application that isn't integrated with Powerschool, and the data for OCR collection for the CRDC reside in that third-party system, the LEA or charter is then responsible for submitting that data to the federal government themselves. The data that are in Powerschool and the authoritative sources here at the state will be facilitated by us. But if, for example, you are tracking athletic eligibility information in another source, then it will be your district's responsibility to update those elements and those questions after the DPI upload. Now just remember, we don't have access to that teacher absenteeism, so that is a file or an element, depending on the size of the entity that we're talking about, that will have to be submitted by the local level. Okay, I see no questions. Now, it is afternoon. We've had a couple of cold days. We might have some full bellies out there. So let's just take a look real quick. And I just want to make sure you guys are paying attention. So tell me about your holiday shopping. Are you done? Have you started yet? Did you know there was a holiday coming? I'm going to give you a couple seconds. Love that participation. Oh, wow, I'm in the same boat as most everybody. Okay, we're going to give this just another couple seconds. All right, got 3 more seconds if you want to participate. And we're closing. All right, so let's see if I can show you what your results are, because like I said, I am I am in the majority here. So we have we had 69% that say not yet, 14 that say, should I have started already? And then we've got the overachievers. 17% said yes, they are done. I wish I was you. I wish I was. Okay, thank you for playing today. I'm going to hide the poll, and we're going to keep moving. All right. So completing the collection. This is one part that I just want to make sure everybody understands. You have to complete the collection in the federal system. I think we got really excited, for example, the first collection, and said, yay, we uploaded all of this stuff, and everybody said, yay, we are good, but we forgot to go certify. So let's make sure that doesn't happen in this collection. I will make sure to keep you abreast of where you are during this entire process, which doesn't close until, let me see, I'm going to say around springtime. So one question is, where is the federal submission portal? And that is a great question. We're going to navigate to an area shortly that will show you your launch point. The federal submission portal is not open yet. So you have plenty of time to get to know where that is and feel comfortable navigating there. So let's talk about the timeline. Now, these are 3 key dates, but they're not all the dates. So February 15th is when the Powerschool preview reports close. When they close, we are done with Powerschool. So anything that you see there where you need to make a correction and you want to rerun the report if that's required, then you want to do that before February 15th. Your report has to be run by February 15th at the district level, and I'll emphasize that later. But that's when we close. And actually, I think it might even be February 14th. I could have typed the date here. I wanted to give us one final opportunity. Oh, look at that. Okay, so I got a little crazy with my dates here. Our next set of dates are when I upload the data to the federal system. And apparently I'm doing that in 2017, so I am a rock star. I knew way back then that this was going to happen, and we are going to be good to go. So there's a big old typo for you. By the way, did you know that you can pull these documents down from the website, or I'm sorry, from the webinar at this point? They should be located in the attachments section. So February 18th through the 28th of 2019, not 2017, is when we'll load the data to the submission portal. March 4th is when you should be able to update any data that is required in the federal submission, correct your errors, verify your data, and then ultimately certify. The collection closes on April 22nd of this year for the East Coast, and these dates are subject to change. They could be subject to change due to a Powerschool preview report issue. We might slide some dates a little bit, possibly because of the upload, and then possibly because the federal government may give us more time. I will let you know if there's any slippage in any of these dates. Oh, I see a question, and the question is the completion date of the preview report. The reports have a submission end date of 2/1/19 in Powerschool. Will these be updated? Yes, they will be updated, and let's move to the following timeline, the following slide. So this gives you a little bit more detail about what's going on from basically next week forward. So we are completing it from December 17th through February 15th. You should complete the setup of the Powerschool instance, generate the LEA level reports, and approve those reports. The approval really is for you to check off the box. We will take those reports after the 15th. January 28th through February 4th, the Powerschool CRDC run and approve status reports will be sent daily, just to make sure that we're all ready for that closure coming on the 15th of February. February 4th through February 8th. LEAs and charters will receive accounts to the federal submission portal. That will not come from me, that will come directly from the federal government, and that is based on the contacts that you provided earlier this year. March 4th through April 22nd, you now have access to the system. You can update as needed and certify at any point. Now, March 8th through the 15th is when I'm going to send weekly from the federal government certification reports. So you know where you are and what needs to happen. And again, on the 22nd of April, the federal submission dates close. Okay, I don't see any questions, so let's talk about preparing for the CRDC. So we have communication opportunities. I think the majority of you are on these two lists, possibly. One is the coordinator contacts list that I pull directly from Eddie every time I send a communication out. Now, these contacts are managed by the charter or the LEA, so if things change, update them anytime. There's no need to send me an email asking to have Tara replaced by Robin for communications. You can do that on your own in Eddie at any point. These are sent directly to, or from me. I'm the SEA OCR coordinator. I've got so many acronyms. And then they are generally sent out by the home-based staff and by the Office of Charter Schools. The list that was sent earlier this year on October 1 to the feds are the contacts that they have. It cannot be updated until the federal submission portal opens, and that was created on October 1. So to see who will receive the initial accounts for the federal submission portal, you can navigate to the OCR site or pages on the NC Public School site and see who was submitted during that time. Grads 360 North Carolina Work Group is a voluntary peer-to-peer work group that's set up so that you can discuss with your peers across the state your questions and comments about the CRDC. So the October 1 Eddie contacts were automatically added, and I think you saw that I started sending out unofficial communications from the Grads 360 site last week. Now, you can remove or request anybody to have access to this site using the email address that you see on the slide, Molly Hash at AEM Corp. She will provide access to the Grads 360 site. And like I said, this is not a big secret. Anybody can have it. You don't have to have the official title of OCR coordinator or student information coordinator. You just, you know, if you're going to participate in the collection, then it might be a valuable resource. This site is password protected. The initial site password is welcome 2018, capital W with an exclamation point at the end. If you have any trouble or with accessing the site, reach out to Molly Hash. Another thing to keep in mind is that you should adhere to any Ferpa and Hipaa guidelines. So no student email or no student IDs, no identifying student information. Let's see, I do see some questions. I'm going to pause here. And one question is, in Eddie, do we include the names of the personnel who will lead the CRDC efforts or our OCR coordinator? Those are different people. That's a great question, and one I have often asked the feds. What is it that you're looking for? The way that I'm breaking this down here is that in Eddie, those are my data collectors. Those are the people who need to know what's happening with this collection. When the federal submission portal opens, they have actually, I think, like 2 different areas where you can add Office of Civil Rights contacts, which is actually kind of funny because they will also be submitted with your data. The way that I look at that is in Powerschool, you have 3 fields that identify 3 types of civil rights coordinators. Those are the guys who are dealing with the incidents at the local level. So I believe that in Eddie, it's important for you to have those who are participating in the data collection added to that contact list so that we can communicate fluidly. In Powerschool is where I think that you should put your Office of Civil Rights coordinators, those who actually deal with the day-to-day issues. So thank you for that question. The next question is the Grads 360 work group. I emailed Molly. I have yet to receive a response. What's the timeline? Oh, that's a good question. Molly might get inundated. I'm not quite sure. She did send me an email this morning that says if I can validate their address as a North Carolina public school, can I go ahead and approve them? To which I said, yes, please do. So hopefully you will receive a confirmation shortly. Now, I can reach out and ask her, but I would say give her a day or two at least. I don't think she's supporting just North Carolina. Oh, a question is, will you make this slide deck available immediately following? Actually, yes, it should be posted to our website here, I believe today. There was a question about it, which already went through the approval. And if you look at your panel, this handout has been added to this panel, to your panel as an attachment. So you can download that immediately if you'd like. Also attached to this webinar is the most recent version of the North Carolina specific documentation. So you can download that, which again is going to be published today. And then the LEA and school level federal forms for your convenience. So thank you for your question. Let me know if you have any trouble, reach out. I'm happy to get you what you need. So I see a question that I'm not quite sure I understand. I do not see the questions populating my screen so that I can print the log. Oh, I believe this is a go-to question. I'm going to try to address that a little bit later. Let's just keep moving with this. So feel free to remind me, and I don't have a problem with taking a look after we get through our presentation today. Okay, so it looks like I've cleared my questions. Phew. And here we go. So as far as documentation, I really want to make this very clear this year. You've got to know what's in those LEA and school level forms. It's the key to understanding the data that Powerschool is pulling, because Powerschool data and the report are only going to give you those aggregate numbers and a very brief description of what the data is. In order to understand the business rules, the collection dates for the type of data, and to validate your actual Powerschool reports, you have to have the federal government's LEA and school level forms. I can't stress that enough. For those of you who have been in my webinars in the past, I have my handy dandy paperwork right here. I always use this sound effect. It is my Bible. It is what I use. I mean, it's dog-eared, it's highlighted, it's coded, it's tagged. It's got coffee stains somewhere. You know, I have this sucker all the time. Also, what you want to have with you is the Preparing for the CRDC resource guide, which is North Carolina specific procedures for making this happen in Powerschool, which is pretty much the key to all things OCR. So make sure that you have this documentation. Again, it's in the panel for you today if you want to download it. It's also on our NC Public Schools site. Give me just a second here. Let's walk on over there. There we go. So on our NC Public Schools website, under Enterprise Data and Reporting, you'll see an Office of Civil Rights link. There is the data collection and what it is. We talked about this. It's kind of an overview for you, maybe a little bit more detail. You have a page about communication and support. It's very important that you understand that I can help you with the data, but I may not be able to help you with kinks and weirdness in the federal submission portal. I'll try, but mostly that needs to go up to partner support. You have documentation and webinars, which we're looking at right now, FAQs, and then the 1718 OCR data files. Let's talk about that for just a second. So the data files are what we submit to the feds that are outside of Powerschool. So this will hopefully give you an opportunity to preview that data before we upload. They are one-time extractions. If you find something that you do not feel is representative of the data that you want to report to the Office of Civil Rights, then you can correct that data in the federal submission portal. So far we've sent the feds 2 files, the contact list and the advanced website school directory. So expenditure information, teacher certification, staff information, internet access. They will all be published on this website for you to review, you know, when you have a moment. So, going back to our website here and looking at our documentation and webinars, I'm going to just do a quick refresh on this. And it hasn't been updated yet. This page houses the federal level forms right at the top for your convenience. And then down here at the bottom, we've got our preparing for the CRDC. This is a draft copy, and the only reason it is a draft copy is because the screen captures for the current collection, the report, had not been documented yet. The update, which should be coming today, has those screenshots and the process or the hints and the tips for reviewing the actual report. And then your Powerschool presentation, or I'm sorry, your webinar presentation will be listed here as well. We have some other opportunities for webinars, and then we also have workshops. The workshops are located at DPI, and they are bring your work in, be prepared with your questions. It's real-time assistance for anything that I can help you with. Nobody has to sign up, just come in. If nobody's here at 4 p.m. or even 3:30, then I'm gonna probably lock the training room. So I would advise, you know, maybe being here a little bit earlier than that, or if you truly plan to attend, contact me and I'll do what I can to help you out. So we're gonna go back to the presentation. I do see that I have a question. I'm gonna pause for just a second. Is this a report we do every year? No, thank you for your question. We don't do this every year. We do it every 2 years. I would like to talk to the home-based staff about having this report available to you October 1 of every year, and so you can run just a review and to kind of get into a groove with it. But we're not there yet. This is a collection that is done every 2 years on previous year data. Okay, so here are our resource links. We kind of walked through some of this. Let's talk about Grads 360 real quick. We're going to tab out of here. We're going back to the website. Now, Grads 360, you can Google it, CRDC Grads 360, and it will pop up. But I'm going to use my very favorite internet tool here with bookmarks, which is Symbaloo, which I don't think you've heard me say it enough. They should pay me. So our Grads 360 website is specific to the CRDC. This is not our work group website. This is your launching page for all things CRDC. So this documentation is specific to what the federal government needs and their suggestions and tips on how to collect it. This is not North Carolina specific documentation, which you absolutely need to complete this report. But this is the place that you will go to launch to the federal submission portal. I anticipate that it will probably live right where my mouse is circling, right above partner support. This is also where you can access the North Carolina Grads 360 group. So this right here is one of your best friends as far as the collection also. Even if you don't want to participate in the Grads 360 work group for North Carolina, you still need to get yourself familiar with this page so that you can launch the federal submission tool when it comes open. All right, so like I said, have your documents ready. You need to have the LEA level, the school level, I guess depending on your role. If you are a school data manager, you probably don't need the LEA level document. However, as the LEA coordinator or the OCR coordinator, you should probably have that purview of the entire universe for your LEA. And then you want that preparing for the CRDC document. Let me see, Powerschool CRDC screen and report. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is important also. When you look at this documentation, and here I'm looking at the documentation, when you look at this documentation, you're going to notice in the table of contents that it's changed a little bit if you are a veteran of this particular collection. But we have done our best with the Powerschool vendor to align the table of contents and the questions with the Powerschool screens and the Powerschool CRDC preview report, so that all you have to do is navigate, to the table of contents and then access that, that page and read through. So that's something that you're going to see on a couple of different slides. So I'm going to take a minute here. You can take a look at this. Preparing for Powerschool. This slide tells you where to go in the Powerschool Preparing for CRDC report as far as how to do these 5 things within them for the collection. And as you look at that, I see some questions coming up. So the question is the data we are entering the 17-18 school year? Yes. The data that we are collecting from your Powerschool system and from the authoritative sources that we will submit to the federal submission tool on your behalf is last year's data. So I guess there might be some questions about how do I validate this data, and I have some answers for you. It's not always easy, but we will be providing some of that. Some of that how do I look for it information this year. So a question is can you define what internet access information means? Not right off the top of my head, but I can tell you that it exists in the school level form, and it's data that you, or a good portion of the data that you submit to the school report card. It is internet access and devices. There are 2 questions. It's page 119 of the school level form. And like I said, it is data that you submit into that Apex tool. So, do you have, what type of internet access do you have, and what type of Wi-Fi enabled access do you have? So that tells me that might get to be a larger portion in upcoming collections. So take a look at page 119 of the school level document at the federal level. Oh, if you're one of the new lab schools, I'm going to address this question offline. Thank you for the question. I will reach out to you. I don't know exactly the answer. My hunch is yes, but I will reach out after the webinar within this week, I guess. If the PS report shares that victim is missing from the disciplinary incident, can we correct the Powerschool even though, boy, okay. So the question I'm going to paraphrase a little. If we know that the data in Powerschool are incorrect for incidents, can we correct it? So the answer is you could correct it. You won't be able to rerun your incident report. You could correct it in Powerschool, and I believe when you regenerate your Powerschool preview reports for CRDC, that data will be reflective of the updates that you've made. It does not rely on the incident report within Powerschool. So you can either update it in Powerschool or you can update it on the federal submission side. So thank you for your question. And how do we collect data for a school that closed last year? Oh, very good question. Your Powerschool instance didn't close. So I don't think that this is going to be an issue. I can research it a little bit further, but because your instance never closes a school, we close them in EDI, your data should exist within Powerschool to be collected. I'd be curious about that. I can reach out a little bit later. I don't think there's going to be an impact. Gosh, I hope I'm right. Thank you for your question. Okay, here's another. Okay, so this is about a lab school. And hi there. I will reach out to you at a later date about how I can help you with that. Thank you. Okay, all right, so back to our handy-dandy presentation. Let's talk about Powerschool functionality. So I'm going to jump back and forth regarding the presentation, and I have an Asheville instance that I'm going to show. Excuse me for the wiggly mouse here. I'm trying to get my question panel out of the way. So the first thing is make sure that your schools have the ability to see the report. It doesn't hurt for every school to have the report, but it could be, you know, kind of an issue for a school that doesn't have the report to be aware of the data. So I know there are a couple ways that you could show and hide the report. I am demonstrating or showing to you here that at the LEA office level, so you can go directly from the reports section on the left-hand side of the screen, click the state reports, and under the chevron, you should be able to show or hide schools. So let's just move on over to our Powerschool instance. Now, nothing I'm going to show you in my QA instance here will be student-level data. There are some student-level reports you're just going to have to imagine and walk with me. But on the left-hand side, as our demonstration to show and hide reports, I click any of the reports section. I go to my state reporting dashboard. At the LEA level, the reports are conveniently located at the top. I'm going to click the chevron on the on the left-hand side, and I've got my show hide schools. From here, all I have to do is click yes or no. So really, it doesn't hurt for everybody to see this. One of the things that can be a little bit confusing is that staff may think they need to run it because it exists in an off year. So if you like to, you know, keep the report area clean and tight, I don't know of any other report that you only do every other year, but you can hide the reports if you choose to. And remember that you need the CRDC preview report part 1 and part 2 for each of your schools. So we have moved through that. Now, like I said, these instructions are located in the Preparing for CRDC, as well as on this presentation. The next thing that we need to look at, and we're looking at the school level, and it needs to be done with each of the schools, is the CRDC EDI grade levels. So I'm going to navigate to Asheville High. We're going to come on and back over here. I'm going to make you dizzy a little bit. But from the start screen, select your school. This needs to be done with each of your schools, each of your public schools especially. And, you know, anything that's not reporting to the CRDC, you can skip. I hope that's clear, but any of your reporting schools needs to have this data in order for your reports to run accurately. So from the start screen, you select your school, go to the setup, go to the school section, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you'll see CRDC EDI grade levels. Last year, the 17-18 school year, was year ID 27 in Powerschool. And you can see that here on the left-hand side. Right next to that is the grade level. That's the only other thing that this report or this screen actually cares about for CRDC. Low and high range, nobody cares, not being used. But it is very important that you identify your grade levels as they are seen in EDI, not in Powerschool. So in Powerschool, we've got a gazillion PK grade levels, right? Well, maybe not a gazillion, but at least like 5. What we want to see in here is PK, semicolon, KG, semicolon, 01, blah, blah, blah. If it's looking at, or if it's listed as Powerschool, it's not going to work for you as you would expect. So to demonstrate this, I have selected Asheville. On the left-hand side, I'm scrolling to my setup. I click on school. I use that mouse to run all the way down the screen. I select EDI grade levels, and I review my screen. My screen may or may not have year 27. I had that implemented for you oh so long ago. I'm not sure that it actually went into every instance. So if it doesn't exist, you have the ability to add the section. When you click add, the row will be located at the bottom. Now here you see, again, we have term ID 27, and then we have our grade levels listed as you would see them in EDI. Now, why there are so many in some and none in others, I really don't know. I don't know why we went back to year ID 11. It's kind of funny because we were, those were NCY days, so that's kind of silly, kind of funny. But this has to be done for every public school, or your data seriously will not come out as you expect. I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on this report, and I forgot to update this screen, and my stuff looked really wackadoodle. So just keep that in mind. That would be the next step, is make sure your data managers update the screen, or your LEA coordinator or your OCR coordinator. Make sure that your staff have access to every school that you have in Powerschool. So notice I have the Dpi FTE school. I'm not going to update that. There's no need. Doesn't report on this. I have migrant. I have those program schools, and those program schools are part of this collection. So whomever is updating the CRDC at grade levels, if you are doing it at, say, an LEA level, if you have that global view, make sure you seriously fully have the global view of your schools. Let me see. All right, next slide, some steps. Just a little emphasis. Got to have that year 27. Nobody cares about the low and high grade. Make sure that stuff looks like it's from Eddie. And I'm going to pause for questions. Just give me a second. You can take a look at this beautiful screen capture I have for you. And the webinar MC is having technical difficulties with her question panel. Hang on just a second here. All righty. Well, actually, I have several questions. Okay, so what grade levels are reported? K through 12? No. That's a great question because we report all grade levels, okay? So we report PKs all the way through grade 13. The feds are very interested in our early childhood development, and so this is not a report that is similar to, say, the principal's monthly report where we exclude our PK students. Grade 13, our early college students, are rolled into grade 12 at the end of the collection before the data are submitted to the federal government. So it's all grade levels in our universe. So one's a comment, and thank you for your comment and your smiley face. Okay, do we have to do one for a career center? That is a good question. Your career center is your cross enrolled. I am so sure that if your student does not spend 50% of the time there, you do not need to record for a career center. But we can take that offline and we can talk directly about that. But students who are cross-enrolled, if they are not going to the school 51% of the time, 51% of the time, they are not reported on the target school. They are only reported in the home school. So that leaves some gaps, and I've been talking to the feds about that and how we could shore that up. In addition, talking to home base about how we could provide more data in regard to, say, the cross-enrollments, or let's say even virtual cross-enrollments, which I'm just jumping into the hornet's nest here. But I'd like to see us have a more adequate representation of the services and the courses that are provided for students throughout the state. So yeah, in discussions with the feds and also in discussions with the home base staff. That's a mouthful. Do we run the report for migrant and homeless? Okay, so the school level reports, and we'll have a discussion about this, but the school level reports are not required to run. They are a resource tool for you guys. So in the preparing for the CRDC guide, there is guidance on the program schools. They should be included in the federal report or the Powerschool Freebie report. The DPI school, DPI FTE, has been hard-coded out because it is not a true public school, nor is it a program school. Graduated students is also hard-coded out. but your data for students that graduated in 17-18 will be pulled for the report at their respective schools. What if you have grade levels that are not in sequence? For example, PK in a middle school? That's a great question. So you're just going to put in your PK semicolon 06, semicolon 07, semicolon 08, and so on. So you don't have to have consecutive grade levels. That's not a problem at all. CRDC EDI grade levels. So if year 27 is not listed, we can add it manually. Absolutely correct. You can add it manually. And you want to do that before you run the reports next week. That's important because really your data is going to just look weird. Do I add year 27 once? And then do I pull, then do I put 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 as that is what we teach? Yes, you add the year term 27 once, and then you need to put in your grade levels exactly as you would see them in EDI. So 06 semicolon, 07 semicolon, 08, so on and so forth. And you are only reporting on the grade levels where you have student attendance. So thank you for your question. Please ask me anything and if I can't get to it today, I will respond. So do we submit CRDC for program schools? We do, but the data, it's a little different. A lot of the program school information actually is reported at the LEA level, but those program schools have to be part of the collection if you had attendance in regards to students who are receiving services but not sitting in a public school. Okay, so I want to emphasize that program schools are part of the collection. Okay, I just want to make sure you guys know program schools are part of the collection. What if I ran the reports today? Can I add year 27 and then rerun? Great question. If you ran the reports today, you're going to have to do it next week because the production level report or the production ready report has not been deployed yet. We've been working with the vendor to make sure that we've got our courses aligned. You'll notice that if you ran your report anytime recently, that your 7th and 8th grade courses look really weird. That's because they're pointed to 15, 16. So, for example, Algebra 1 was what, like 2103? It's now 2109. So all of that has been in progress, making sure that the courses are mapped, making sure your EC data has been imported so that you can see it on the Powerschool preview reports, making sure your AP exam data has been imported, and that will be deployed next week on Tuesday. It's going to be the 18th that Powerschool report will be ready. And if you ever feel like you made a mistake, like you didn't add the grade levels, not a problem. Add your grade levels to the EDI CRDC reports and screen, and then rerun your report. You're not going to break anything. For larger districts, those reports are going to run for a very long time. If there is any reason that you need services shut down those nightly processes to run your report, please contact me, and I'll be happy to work with the Powerschool vendor and home-based staff to make sure that happens for you. Okay, I'm going to move forward here, and I see that I do have several questions. I will address these at the end. I'll do the best that I can to make sure that I have addressed your questions here. So let's just make sure we get through the presentation, and then we will return back to that. So excuse the wiggly mouse again. So our next step, which seems like we might be bouncing around a little bit, but this is at the LEA office level. The LEA office level has a civil rights data screen. The navigation is very similar to the school level. So there's an LEA office level screen, and then for each school, there is a school level screen. These screens are very important to your collection, and each need to be the questions need to be answered at each screen. So if you're LEA office or if you're an LEA coordinator and you're doing all of this, you will need to touch each of the LEA or the school level screens. Let's start with the LEA office. So one thing I want to point out here is the question, the questions have been realigned a bit, but they're pretty much the same questions that were asked in the last collection if this is something that you've done before. What I do want to point out is these weird names right here, these weird numbers, SSPR 1 through 5, SSPR 6 through 11. If you take a look at the federal documents, this is how the table of contents is set up, and in turn, how their application is set up. So this is a really nice linear progression of the question and making sure you're verifying the data, the right data. So if you are familiar with the federal submission tool and how it operated last year, you were directed to different tables, and they were identified by acronyms. So the feds also have been really doing well in the last few collections in updating their documentation and making it clear. One step they took this year is these alphanumeric, basically question numbers, right? So you should be able to follow SSPR4 through Powerschool to the CRDC the Federal Submission Portal tool, using the federal documentation to have a very comprehensive understanding of what you're actually answering and submitting. I'm going to move over to the tool. I'm going to navigate back to my LEA office. Left-hand side, under Setup, I'm going to LEA. I'm going to scroll down the screen and click on my CRDC data collection. Now, this might take a minute to open up because data are being calculated behind the scenes. And again, here is the actual screen itself instead of a screenshot. Notice that some of these are already answered for you. This documentation, or this information, and what is calculated versus what is manual is listed in the CRDC, or preparing for the CRDC document, the North Carolina specific. Those page numbers that I referenced on the slide will follow through with a table and a grid that shows you what's manual and where it comes from. So this one, it looks a little bit different, but the big thing that I want to tell you here that is absolutely required will be the Civil Rights Coordinator. There was a question earlier in regard to who am I putting in EDDI? Am I putting the data collector, or am I putting the person who's working the issues? So in EDDI, it's the data collector. In Powerschool, it's those people who are working on those daily issues. And this is the screen that you will document their information. Once you're done, you click on Submit. If data are incorrect, let me give you an example here. If data are incorrect, as in does this LEA provide kindergarten services, and you see that it says yes, but really you actually don't, and it says enrollment count of 1, you have to go find that student. Go find that student who in 17-18 was enrolled as a kindergarten student by mistake, possibly. Their grade level is incorrect. You have to go back to the source, make the correction on that student's record, go back to the screen, and you'll see the update has been made. In addition, you'll need to rerun your reports because you've changed the data. Now, I'm not going to really show you the slides for the next step. We're just going to keep on going here because our next step is the Civil Rights Data Collection screen at the school level. Now, remember, this needs to be answered for everyone. You've got or for every public school and program school. You've got a grid that tells you what is manual, what is required, and also discusses some of these options that we're going to look at here in just a second. Scrolling down on the left-hand side, clicking on School, scrolling all the way to the bottom, clicking on Civil Rights Data Collection, waiting for my screen to open because it's calculating data. Now this screen is looking at EDDI. So data that are incorrect here that are already answered, did I click it? Oh, okay, I did, all right. That are incorrect, like is this a magnet school or it's not a magnet school? The data need to be updated in the authoritative source. For EDDI, you'd need to wait a date for that integration, that nightly pass through, and then your data should be accurate. You can rerun your report. So The two that I want to address, and this is always confusing to everyone, and I understand that, it's hard for me to wrap my head around it because to me this is backwards. And we will talk about this more. I'm sure you'll have some questions, so we will readdress this after we get through the presentation. But your first question is this school excluded from the CRDC reporting? Well, think about the question. Is it excluded from the reporting? It's Asheville High. It's a public school. I had attendance in my 17-18 year. The answer here would be no. I would recommend that you add this no as a checkbox for you. If something looks weird on the report, if something looks weird, like why do I have this school, or should this school be showing up, this no is just an indicator for you that you have done your due diligence and the school is not excluded. Now, if this were a school in your Powerschool instance, where the situation is that you would exclude it, let's give a lottery school, for example, something that is under 290. Is that right? Am I thinking about that right? Yes, under 290. That is not a public school. That may be a grouping school for the lottery, for a lottery enrollment for other grouping. For, let's say, I know of a school or an LEA that is housing their virtual classes there. That is not going to be included. And you don't want all that noise on your report anyway. I don't know that it would really matter if you included the report, because you shouldn't have any students enrolled in those non-public schools anyway, those under 290 schools. There shouldn't be any enrollment records that were open in 17-18. But if that is the case, then this field needs to be set to yes, exclude this. So in our situation here, our school should not be excluded. Now my next question is an actual LEA level question. It's not a school level question. So that might be a little bit confusing, but it's asking, is the school a non-LEA facility? So basically the way that North Carolina is looking at this is this a school that provides services but does not have attendance, does not have student attendance? They do not sit in a seat. Another way that you could look at this is your PK students. If this is a school for a non-LEA facility, if you have your PKs housed in there, that's possibly one way you could interpret this. But again, if you're, the question, is this school a non-LEA facility? And we were looking at, for example, homeless, or more at 4, where you may be housing PK students who are not actually attending the public school, but might actually be receiving a service there. Migrant, CCAS. The answer here would be yes. So let's pretend this is not Asheville High. Your first two questions for a program school is this excluded? No, it's not excluded. I want to count my students. Is it a non-LEA facility? Is it a program school? Yes. From there, you're pretty much done if it's a program school. If it's not, then you need to fill out the questions here to the best of your ability based on your school level and click submit. I know this is going to generate a lot of questions. Let's see where we are. Let's take a look at, I'm going to leave this screen up while I answer some questions after I find my question panel again. Holy cow, I lost my question panel. There it is. Oh, am I clicking on the screen? So sorry, guys. I'm going to take it back one. I'm going to start from the bottom here. Please define program school again. A program school is a school where a student has an enrollment record because the LEA is providing a service, but the student does not sit in a public school seat or is not at the public school setting. So CCAS, homeless, migrant, immigrant, I don't even know that that's still used, and more at 4 may possibly still be used, but these are program schools in your Powerschool server, in your Powerschool instance. So you have students who are technically enrolled there. They are enrolled to be able to collect data, as in the feds want to know how many students are exceptional children. You have students who go to school on a regular basis who have an IEP, for example, and then you might have a student who is provided a service and has an IEP but does not attend a public school. Your first student in this example would be at Happy Elementary. Your second student in this example would be in your CCAS program school in Powerschool. So I hope that helps. Feel free to reach out and ask me any questions. Also ask your peers using the Grads 360 work group. And I monitor that regularly, so we can all have a discussion there. Okay, so I'm sorry, I got to move my panel around here. Hang on. Yeah, okay, so one of these questions, I think, the question is what do we do if we know a certain section of collection has errors, such as the number of students? Okay, that's a great question, and I'm glad you know your data so well. What I would do is I would run the Powerschool report. I would make note using the federal documentation and the Powerschool extracts, and I would be prepared to update that data in the federal submission tool. It's not likely fixable because this is a previous year collection. So in order to prepare yourself, in order to move with efficiency through the report, and during that collection period where you're updating possible errors in the CRDC system, the federal submission, or if you know that the data are going to be incorrect, get yourself ready, and it will help with the navigation of the CRDC system. Okay. So this is just a confirmation. So in the situation of a migrant school, the first question would be set to yes. I'm just going to back this up on our presentation. The first question would be set to yes, and our first question would be set to no, and our second question is set to yes. Is that right? That's absolutely correct. I wish I could have gotten it out of my mouth correctly. So yes, you are correct. And the first question would be set to no. This is not excluded. The second question, is this a non-LEA facility? If we're talking about the migrant program school, that question would be set to yes. So you are exactly right. Are there individuals at the school level that are also working on the CRDC report, or is it just the LEA coordinator? I think that's at your discretion at the district or at the charter. It is up to you who works on the collection. I believe that I communicate with the LEA coordinators and whomever has the hat on for OCR coordinator, but you can task your staff at the school level, if you so choose, to update certain screens like the EDI CRDC screen and the CRDC Powerschool screens. So that is a great question. How do you answer this question for each school? JUST1. Okay, I'm going to navigate back. Oops. That seems to be my favorite word today. And the question is regarding this bottom left-hand, very bottom, JUST1. This you don't need to answer. This is not necessary. It is only for one particular LEA. So if you are not that LEA, and that would be our justice facilities, then you don't need to answer the question at all. There's no reason to do so because this is just for one district. In other states, they may have justice facilities within their local education agencies, but for us, it's one entity that's dispersed throughout the state. how do we add CRDC grade levels for program schools? If so, what are the grade levels? And should they be entered for each? So my recommendation for program schools would be to put in all grade levels. It may or may not be used, but that would be the recommendation. So you would start with your PK, semicolon, KG, semicolon, 01, semicolon, blah, blah, blah. You're gonna put that in for each of the program schools, and then you don't have to worry about it. So do I work within the 2017-18 Powerschool year to complete information, or do I work within the 18-19 year? If I do work in 18-19, I have no access to the lab in Powerschool. I may have to answer this question offline, but as an overall answer to the question, you're going to be running your report in the 18-19 school year, the current year. And if you have to make a correction, let's say a course number was wrong. I think you would have caught this already, but let's say a course number is wrong for a student. It's probably a pretty bad example. You would make that correction in their historical marks, and you would move forward. As far as incident data, that incident data happened in 17-18. If you needed to make the correction, you would make the correction at the source and at the source year. And the way that I envision that is that would be a record within the student's, safety information. So I don't even know at any point that you would have to go back to 17-18 unless you were validating data. And then the course scenario applies really well. So in order to identify what courses you had in 17-18, you could use that course section filter. But to be able to count your students, you'd have to be able to see those course sections, and you would have to be able to go into the enrollment for that year. So the short answer is you're running your Powerschool report in 18-19, you're going to be validating possibly in 17-18. If I answer yes to question 2, then I don't answer anything else on the LEA setup. Well, okay, if you answer yes to question 2 at the school level, you don't have to answer anything else on the school setup. So that's a great question. Okay, what grade levels should be in the program schools? We did just answer that, but to reiterate, you want all grade levels. So that would be your PK through grade 13 even. Program schools, migrant and CCAS schools are included with a question mark. There are services, but no attendance recorded. Okay, so what I interpret you to be saying is your students have an enrollment record for the 17-18 year, but you didn't record attendance on them. Now, if I'm incorrect, you can go ahead and put that in the panel, but I'm going to interpret this question in that fashion, and that is, if you have enrollment records for the collection year, which is 17-18, in your program schools, in one of your federal schools, then that school should be collected within the CRDC. So if a student has an enrollment record for that year, any student, even if it's just one, then your program school needs to be included. Can we have a list of the program schools so that we are capturing the correct schools? Yeah, you can look at the presentation that has a list of all the program schools. In addition, on the section for the course or for the CRDC screen at the school level, that has a grid that identifies your program schools. So your program schools, you may have more at 4, and it may be a school that you are using, that you had enrollment in the 17-18 year. You have the CCAS school. You may have an immigrant school in there. I'm not sure that you would be using it, but you may have it. You may have an EL school or an LEP school. And you may also have a homeless school. So each of these program schools should be captured in the collection. So I thought program schools are only participate if attendance is taken. Let's make sure that we're really clear on our terminology. Program schools should be collected if there was an enrollment in the program school in the 17-18 year. I don't know that attendance is ever taken in a program school, but let's make sure that we're talking about student enrollment in that year. So I hope I answered your question. Okay. Even though their little bodies are in the brick and mortar schools, most of our PK children are in our PK school 100. Do I need to show the grade level PO, etc., in the brick and mortar, or just in the PK school? That's a fantastic question. So first, because you're using an under 290 school, you're going to have to add those students to the appropriate brick and mortar when the data are uploaded into the federal submission portal. So I believe that what you should do is answer in your CRDC EDI grade levels that your school 100 has your PK level, and let it generate a report for you so you can get some data out of that. But you are going to have to update that in the federal submission portal. If that's not clear, reach out to me, and it's always lovely to see your name. Let me know if you have any other questions about that. Okay, we're getting close to answering most of these questions, so we're going to move on to the report here in just a minute. But I knew that there would be a lot of questions about the program schools. So the program schools, does enrollment for services only require CRDC completion? For program schools, does enrollment for services only require CRDC completion? Example, CCAS school for students who receive EC services only, no schedule or attendance, correct. You wouldn't be using, I don't anticipate, this may be different, and there may be an exception out in the LEAs for these program schools, but I don't anticipate you would have a schedule or attendance because those children are only receiving services. They don't sit in a public school. Like I said, I could be wrong, but what we're looking for is student enrollment in that program school, so the indication that they did receive services that year. Please repeat whether or not homeless should be reported. The answer is yes. What about the PK center that is not an official DPI reported school? We want all the PK babies counted. So if it's not an official school, you're going to, if those students actually reside at a brick and mortar, you need to be prepared to add those students to your CRDC federal submission. You need to take a look at the documentation and be prepared for the possibility of updating there. Now, if these students are, if this is a brick and mortar that is a non-LEA facility, then they can be counted like a program school. But if you have questions, reach out and I'll try to clear that up for you. Is this school to teach K-12? I need to put it in all levels. I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. It says, going back to what you said, if this school is to teach K-12, I need to put in all grade levels. I now understand as I listen to myself, and the answer is yes. If you have kindergarten through 12th grade, all grade levels need to exist in the EDI CRDC grade levels. Okay, I think we're pretty good. I'll come back to any questions that I haven't answered after we go through the next piece. Alrighty, so we're going to go back. We've already captured most of these questions and we've already completed these demos. Okay, so let's talk about the Powerschool Freebie reports. I can't emphasize enough that you need to have the federal documentation to fully understand your data. The LEA level reports are absolutely required. That's where we extract your data from. So by February 15th, they have to have been generated. The approval button is pretty much for you as a checkpoint that says, yes, I did this. The approval button only lasts for 24 hours. Do not get happy and hit that button before it is time. I will also use that as an indicator that you have rerun the report. For example, if there was a bug between the launch date of next week and the submission end date of February 15th, you will need to rerun that. I've got a report that tells me the last time you reran. If I see that you had not rerun that report after the incident had been fixed, then I would reach out to you. Reports will be available on December 18th. My apologies, this is a typo. It is December 18th, It'll be ready for you Tuesday morning when you come in. I know this is the most exciting thing on your list for Tuesday, and you will generate this report then. So don't approve any of the reports at this time. I just want to emphasize that and have your documents. Now, unlike the PMR or the SAR, this report does not have any errors or warnings in Powerschool. So don't let that box fool you. Just because it has a happy green check does not mean your data is representative of what you want to be submitting to the CRDC. The school level, though, these reports, there was a question earlier about whether or not you needed to generate the school level reports. The school level reports have detailed student data that allow you to do investigation if you need to. So for example, at the school level, you can tell that Tara Dominguez is Caucasian, she's 17, which she never wants to be again. She's in grade level 12. She has an AP course. She has suspensions, which, actually I never did get suspended, but I wasn't exactly the greatest student. So as far as that, the school level reports are to help facilitate the validation of the data. They are there for you. They are a gift. So feel free to run them at your leisure. Just remember, it's going to show you everything that you need to know about the students and where they might be counted. If there is an update, I know I just said that, but if there is an update to the Powerschool reports between the launch date and the submission end date, you will have to rerun the CRDC reports at the LEA level in order to get the latest and greatest fix. And, I'll be letting you know as soon as I find out that there is an error or that they need to be rerun. Okay, so this slide right here just kind of gives you a little bit more emphasis on the way that the Powerschool reports line up with the federal form TOC. So remember we were talking about that SSPR-1, SSPR-2. This is where you're going to find information as you're looking at the Powerschool views. And I think at this point we're getting pretty close to just running through a quick demonstration. I don't even know if we really need to do that. This slide right here tells you what I really want you to understand. Here is an image of the school form. On the left-hand side, you're looking at the federal school form. ENRL-1 is overall student enrollment. Where'd my mouse go? There we go. Overall student enrollment. So if you look at the category 1 column on the Powerschool report, running Powerschool Part 1, then you're going to see that that matches up directly to ENRL-1 overall student enrollment. And notice that you have two rows here. This is representative of the male gender and the female gender. And then it's got your breakdown of the race, ethnicity, and then the program groups that are collected. So if you have your documentation, you have that lined up with your report, your validation will go much more smoothly. You will understand, well, what enrollment date did you use? Because this doesn't match with my PMR. Well, no PMR identifies students as of October 1 of the year. And that is a business rule that is in place for this report. So it's really important that you understand the rules as far as the time specified or any business rules that are applied here based on the business areas. So here's just another screenshot pretty much that just tells you can also use your filtering. My personal preference is to extract the data from Powerschool and filter using Excel. Recommendation to the large LEAs. So we did talk about this earlier. Some of these some of the LEAs reports may take a while to generate. If there is a reason that you need home-based services shut down for a night in order for your report to run successfully, please contact me and I'll set that up with the home-based team. So we're almost wrapping up. What should we complete now? So now you've got access right this very minute to update your LEA and school level CRDC screens, your CRDC EDI grade level screen. You could do that today and be ready to run the report on Tuesday. On Tuesday, you can generate the 17-18 preview reports, just don't approve them. And at that point, start your validation. Using the documentation, just as we talked about, so here's the documentation. And I'll send a notification as far as when approval is required. So as of next Tuesday, you have all the tools that you need to validate this data prior to February 15th. Report anything that you see to me, that's just fine, and as soon as you see it, and I will go directly to the home base team and the vendors. So now we're back at questions. Let me make sure that I have answered everything. We went through this pretty quickly. I think that is just fine. You know how to reach me at any time. I cannot get my question panel out. Hang on. It looks like for the most part I have answered everything. When can we place the grade levels in the CRDC EDI grade levels section of Powerschool? Right now, you can do that right now. Do we set the grade levels up in our CCAS school? In your program schools, my recommendation is to add all grade levels to the CRDC EDI grade level screen. That would be important just to make sure that nothing goes awry. Another question is, we have a PK center that we created last year. However, we created it just for our purposes, and it is not reported to DPI. I'm thinking that we do not need to include them. Maybe we should talk about that offline. I think you should include them. So let's have a discussion. I'll reach out to you possibly next week, and I can get you a more definitive answer. But right now, you know, all signs point to we should include them. Program schools. If there are no students attached, we don't add them, correct? Yes, that's correct. If there was no enrollment for 17-18, then the program school doesn't need to be part of the collection. CRDC year 27. What if I ran the reports already? Can I add year 27? I feel like I should have deleted that one. I think we already answered that, sorry. But hey, like I said, you can't break anything with the report. Go add your year 27, go add your grade levels, and then rerun the report on Tuesday. If you run the report now, all your courses are going to be wonky, your EC data is going to be wrong, your AP exam scores are going to be wrong. All of that, I believe, should be ready and in production on Tuesday. So your report should be, I'm going to make my own word up, validatable. You should be able to validate your report on Tuesday or start. Oh, when is help day with me? Okay. I'm going to go back to our documentation and webinars. So I see what you're asking. January 18th and February 8th are days that you can come in here, and I will assist you as best as possible. Have your questions ready, have your data with you, and we will do our best to work through it. If you look at these dates that are listed on the website, these are all dates prior to the closing of Powerschool, okay? Prior to the closing of the Powerschool preview reports. So if necessary, and if you express your extreme desire to come and see me after we've done the upload, I can consider scheduling a webinar to talk about the federal submission tool. I cannot possibly even bring in one of the federal staff, and we could possibly do a work day there, but we're just not there yet. So you have February 8th and January 18th as an opportunity to come in and get help here. Just, again, make sure that you have your questions ready, your data available, and there's no need to sign up. Just, you know, I'd say make it here before 3:30 or I'm going to close the doors. I understand all of this. I know that oh, okay, so that's a comment. So I love that there's great understanding for the staff who's been through this before. That's cool. I'm glad it's becoming more clear as far as the process. I'm not sure. I need a little bit more information on this. I see it's a statement, but I'm not sure how to address it or what you need. But it says DPI and NC has not updated CCAS. if you could give me a little bit more information, I can pursue that for you. I see another question that I'm going to have to take offline regarding lab schools. I will try to reach out next week, maybe a little later in the week, to have that discussion. But the best thing here is we have time. Oh, so I guess I wasn't very clear. Where is here for January 18th and February 8th? Here is the Department of Public Instruction in Raleigh, and you can get directions on the website, but the real-time assistance, the workshop, is located at the Department of Public Instruction. Okay, just got to have a couple more questions and we're going to wrap up. In my migrant school, there are students listed in -6th grade level. Is that listed as just -6? Asking because some PKs are listed as PK, PK3, PK4. You're going to use your EDI grade levels. So if that's a PK, the only thing that should exist in the EDI CRDC screen is PK. All of your negatives and your PK4s and your PK5s or however that works in Powerschool will translate accordingly based on the EDI grade level. When is this available for replay? I came into the webinar late. Great question. So go ahead and sign up for the Grads 360 North Carolina work group. I will publish a recording on that site. You can access it at any point after you get approval from Molly. And again, remember this documentation, everything we've talked about is in your handouts in your webinar right now. So you can download that now and you have the contact information that you need. Or you can check out any of my most recent emails. So the recording will live on the NC Grads 360 workshop or work group, and the presentation will live here. I'm not sure how quickly the recording will come up on the site, but I can tell you that we will talk about this information again January 19th on our next webinar. Another question is, will it hurt our reports since CCAS info has not been updated in Powerschool? Well, not to be like scary, but yeah, you need to know that CCAS enrollment. And if it's CCAS program school information, specifically, students receiving services at the LEA, you need a number, you need a count. If it is if this data are in regard to students that are sitting at schools in your LEA, then that's an even bigger job. So if you want to reach out to me directly, I can discuss this with you a little bit further if that's not clear. That's all I've got for that. And the next webinar on 9th or 19th. The next webinar is on the 9th. January 9th, and then January 18th is the workshop. I'm not sure how to answer the question about the wonky grade levels, those -6, if they're looking strange. But I'd love for you to shoot me an email and we can take a look at that when we generate the report. And then Holly's email, or Molly's. It's Molly's email. Yes, give me just 1 second. I know it's here somewhere. I feel like it's staring me directly in the face because you guys are watching me. And it is. There we go. All right. Oh. Okay. Well, thank you so much for the comment. Remember that the data that we are looking at is for 17-18. It's not for this year. So all data should have been, you know, crystal clean at EOI. Maybe that's not entirely the case, but do remember that the data we are capturing for this collection is previous year data. But thank you for the comment. I appreciate that. Okay, so I cleared my questions. Woo! Hands in the air. If you have questions, reach out to me. I'm available by email. Remember that we have the Grads 360 work group that you can submit questions to with your peers, and hopefully you guys will get some really great conversations going. I will also respond there. Remember where your documentation is. Remember that you need your documentation. And if you want to join the Grads 360, go to the CRDC Grads 360 program that's listed on this link, and scroll to the bottom, and you'll see that Molly Hash's email, and she will add you if you submit the request through a North Carolina public school email. And then, if data is not loaded or you have questions or concerns about the data, please contact me. You're welcome to email me directly or send an email or a request through the support center. If it's in regard to no access to the federal portal or incorrect permissions, I can try to help you, but the earlier you contact the CRDC partner support at the federal level, the better. So yeah, that's what we've got today. I'm glad to see so many attended, and please reach out if you have questions. You get 29 minutes of your life back. Thank you so much. Have a great night, morning, afternoon. Have a great day. Bye.
You don't, okay, so I can.
Well, that was just silly. Bye. You know what, I had meant to say, just go. I mean,